Been a busy day, so that's why it's taking us a while to go live. Still not fully ready, but
Yeah.
gotta get it started. We are live now. I
Mm-hmm.
was just confirming that on my end. On
I
the
can tell we're
YouTubes.
live because, we have this thing and it says live on the screen.
Yeah.
So
But I'm on the actual YouTubes. That's the thing.
Oh my.
Yeah.
You're on the YouTubes.
Yep.
I'm impressed. True.
If you're listening to this and you're not on the YouTubes, every Monday, 9:00.
Dang, that's pretty good. 9:00.
Yeah.
What time is it right now, Gavin?
It is 9:13 Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah. I'll round that down to 9:00, so still on time.
Yeah. There we go. I like that. I like the way you think.
But now here's the thing, Gavin. If it was like 9:05 and I was in the studio and you weren't in the studio, then I would say that you're late. Yeah, I'm not going to round it down to 9:00. I would round that up to 10:00 and say you were an hour late to the recording.
That's fair. Okay. I don't know about an hour. That seems a bit much.
Whole hour late. No, I would 100% exaggerate it for the purposes of the recording. And you know that.
Yeah, that's accurate.
You do know that, yeah.
At least you admit it.
Right. No, Gavin, very candid. I would never lie about me exaggerating and stretching the truth. Fact.
It's like a confusing web to get into. Lying about stretching the truth. So lying about truthing?
No, I'm being truthful about how much of the truth that I stretch. Which isn't lying, because I what
I
this
understood
really
that.
is, Gavin? It's marketing.
It's marketing.
Yeah. It's marketing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm interested to hear how that's marketing, but
it's marketing.
I'll let you think about that for a bit.
Telling people what they want to hear, not the truth. Or telling them only parts of the truth and then letting them fill in the blanks.
That's fair. Yeah.
That's fair. That's right.
All right. Shall we get started? I'm about to finish this thumbnail.
I suppose. Oh, nice. The thumbnail that we're already live on?
Yeah. Yep. Precisely.
Nice. Love it. Really, really good work by us. No procrastination happens here on this podcast. Absolutely not.
It's not procrastination. I've just been busy.
All right.
Hello. Welcome back to the MLS Now podcast. I'm your host, Russell. You can find me on social media at Mr. Danger Russ. You can find the podcast on social media at MLS Now Podcast. We also have a website. You can find us online at mlsnowpodcast.com. Another week of MLS in the books. It's been a wild ride this season. I feel very vindicated. We'll get into why I feel so vindicated, why I feel so optimistic here shortly. But joining me, the man who his worst fears have come true, seeing me extremely smug on camera. Joining me, of course, are lovable, reliable, ever-present, and certainly good-natured co-host Gavin. You can find him on social media at LionsBlog1. Gavin, hello.
Hello. You can gloat now. By the end of the season, I'll win. So, messing with the camera here. But
Gavin, hey.
By the end of the season, I'll be the winner. I'll just let you know that for certain.
I would just say, Gavin, I am winning our contest. But you can't even calculate the percentage that I'm ahead of you on because, 1 divided by 0 is, of course.
It does happen to be 0. Yes. Yep.
Mm-hmm. It only took us how many weeks, Gavin? Like 7?
We're on
8 match weeks?
We're on the week 9 review.
Yeah. So I finally managed to have my 3-leg parlay go correct over the course of the weekend with my surefire lock of Miami over Nashville, in fact, being the surefire lock. Gavin, unfortunately, did not believe in Messi and Busquets hard enough. So he was punished.
No, I didn't.
He was punished by falling behind. And you know what, Gavin, that'll teach you to doubt, Messi and co whenever they play Nashville, apparently.
Yeah. I don't know. I think what threw me off that one is I thought Nashville was home for some reason, but Miami was home. But I don't know. Nashville's had an up and down season, and I could have seen them, what's the word? Fluking, like a 2-2 or a 1-1 or something. And they had chances, but wasn't the case. So I picked Houston instead, and I was pretty confident about that one. And they didn't show up, so that was very frustrating for me.
It's interesting to me as well, Gavin, that you said Nashville has had an up and down season, because I guess technically that statement is correct in that they have gone up the table at one point in the season, but have otherwise been entirely down on the table. So yes, you are technically correct, the best kind of correct, but maybe the spirit of what you've just said is not entirely factual in nature.
No, I like to look at things as they are. For example, NYCFC have had a pretty good record recently, which we'll talk about later.
We will talk about that later. Hey, we got to talk about this for now. Gavin, drink check. What do you got tonight? Can't do any episode without the drink check. You have no drink.
I have no
I
drink
see the
right
look
now.
Of panic in your eyes.
I have no drink right now. I
That's
did not grab a drink. Yeah, that's my bad.
I'm shocked. I'm disappointed. I think we have to walk back everything that I just said about being a reliable co-host.
No. I can get a drink in a little bit, but we're also live, so it's a little difficult.
I suppose we are also live. No, it's too late, Gavin. You had your chance. We dilly-dallied for almost 15 minutes prior to going live, and here we are. So, anyways, hey, Gavin, I want to talk about a topic, and it's not the one that we said that we were going to talk about, because I know we said we were going to talk about designated players and the history of designated players within the league, and I completely forgot to do any of that research Sunday, and then I didn't do any of that research Monday after work. So instead, Gavin, what I want to ask you is, first, to lay some groundwork, we are in an era of rebrands across the board. Not just necessarily MLS, but teams in the US seem to be rebranding with pretty good frequency. You're seeing some basically every year. Sounders had a rebrand this year, which I think they did pretty well on. But the thing is, branding is one thing. Identity, Gavin. When we talk about teams in MLS, right? When you think, what is a team's identity? Not just like a logo, not just like a name, what they stand for. Is there anything you can think of in MLS? Like, are there any teams that jump out at you as having like a really strong identity? And then to build on that question, how many of those have a good identity, or how many of those have a negative identity that you think about and you're like, ooh, I don't know if you want to be known for that. For a while, case in point, FC Cincinnati, 3 straight wooden spoons. Unfortunately, kind of lays the groundwork for an identity. They're turning it around, but that's for quite a while. When you thought of Cincinnati, that's what you thought of.
Yeah.
So, anyways.
So, I know, I guess like Red Bulls, they have their pressing identity. LAFC has in the past had like a South American LFC have gone through some interesting phases where they've had like a South American identity. Then they had that big summer of recruiting MLS talent within the league. Now they've kind of looked into the European market a bit. And so it just almost seems like they have an identity of like just pushing and signing, stars, or not necessarily like big name stars, but like players who are good and will be good in the league. Like they brought Chicho Arango to the league. They brought Denny Bouanga to the league. They obviously brought plenty of the supporting cast to their cup, like Palacios, and they brought out Tuesta, but he wasn't part of the supporting cast. But who am I thinking of? Cifuentes, that's who I'm thinking of. Like they bring like players like that to the league. So that's kind of their identity. Miami has the identity of going for the stars. LA Galaxy does too in the past. So there's a lot of clubs that have identities like that. I think, don't Chicago kind of have an identity around like being just like a hardworking team? Like that's what I feel like they always try to latch on to.
Say for Polish players.
Well, that too, but they seem to have like that kind of like gritty mentality. It doesn't always come off on the pitch, but I feel like they've had that identity before, or they try to at least have that identity. So I don't know if anyone, other than like what you were saying about Cincinnati, like
those identities though. Like, look at Philadelphia, right? Right? You think of Philadelphia as like a big youth like builder. Dallas, same thing. You think of these as being teams where it's like young guys break out and they go on to do other things in other leagues. At least, recently. Dallas maybe has more of a history, but
yeah, I'd say that's part of those teams' identities as well. But I wouldn't say what I said wasn't
right
identities.
I guess I'm just thinking, like, if your identity is just about like, going out and signing players.
Well, like, okay, it's
if you think of, and maybe some of this is age, right? It's not like MLS has been around for so long that there is maybe an established community identity for some of these teams.
That I agree with. And I don't even think the one thing that I said obviously constitutes as the identity, right? Like it's multifactorial, but I do think those are like big parts of those teams that I kind of called out. And I don't think to your second question earlier, I don't think there's a bad identity unless it like is associated with losing. Unless it's like, I don't know how far we want to go into this, but like with the ownership in Portland, I guess you could say that's part of their identity, right. Maybe.
Wow.
But they've had multiple issues.
How you said that, and like I'm like, oh, he's thinking Portland. Yep.
Yeah. So like stuff like that, I guess. I guess there are bad identities you could call out. Yeah.
Yeah, but even then, the Portland supporters themselves were extremely vocal about that. I think they were vocal about it to a point that they actually kind of forced ownership's hand to make a change.
Yeah.
And I know not necessarily everyone was happy with the extent of the changes. I think there were people who wanted even more change, but I mean, that was a fan-driven change. I think it's safe to call it that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But yeah, it got me thinking, right? Like when you think about teams with like established identities, you think about like these really old teams globally, and I think that's going to be tricky for MLS to have a sort of like identity in that same regard, right? Like if you think both of them, I follow Arsenal, and you always think of like the phrase, you can't buy class, and Arsenal always prides themselves on being a club that people associate with being a classy club, trying to do the right thing. Same thing. Tottenham Hotspur has a identity locally. They are extremely heavily involved with certain communities, and that's like, again, it's very well known. And that's the same thing for like even like Manchester United to a certain point in time. Maybe present day it's changed a little bit, but again, Manchester United had an identity that when you think of you think of them as well. So, I mean, you could look at like Celtic, you could look at Rangers, whether it be basically any league globally, there are these clubs with an established branding and established identity that you think of exactly like key, attributes, characteristics is not old enough to have that association yet. Because like when I think of LA Galaxy or when I think of Miami, I don't think of like an attribute or description yet. I think of Messi or I think of Beckham, which may not necessarily be a bad thing. I mean, you hear, LA Galaxy, you think Beckham, he hasn't played for them in how long? And you still associate, you still see Beckham somewhere and you're like, oh yeah, he played for the LA Galaxy. So, I mean, obviously, it's part of a brand, right? Like there's a long lasting association because they're these, icons of pop culture and, yeah. But it came across as interesting. I don't make any of those same associations with international soccer as I do MLS when I think of identity.
Like international club, you mean? Or like international, like USA,
Right?
Brazil.
No, like clubs.
Clubs.
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Like clubs. Like if you think, yeah. And again, I think some of that is a function of age, but I'm just
maybe, yeah.
It struck me as interesting, right? Like a lot of what you listed off is like player centric. It's not like characteristics or attributes.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Yep. Okay. Hey, for you on your end, am I a bit laggy?
No, you're fine.
You're really laggy for me.
Am I? Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
I don't know. Hopefully it comes through. I mean, we're both recording on our ends, right? So the YouTube live stream's bad.
Right.
The episode will just be fine. Okay.
That's
cool.
Okay.
Well,
what?
Good stuff. Shall we get into the matches themselves?
Sure. Let's hop on into it. We're going to start, Gavin, with Miami 3, Nashville 1, going off my headlines that I did from previous week. Gavin, the Herons take flight to the top of the table. Meanwhile, the team from Tennessee learns that either you go out a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become a Nash villain, a.k.a. Gary Smith, whose seat, I think, continues to get, if it's not getting close to the surface of the sun hot, I don't know how much hotter it can yet get, because it's getting vocal out there.
Yeah, the unfortunate thing for, I don't want to say it's unfortunate, but it almost didn't work in their favor. There's the way they started the match, Nashville. I probably wasn't in either team's game plan for them to be up within the second minute. And then if they had scored again in the 5th minute when they had that chance, I think everything would have been fine for Nashville. They would have been feeling pretty good. But being 1 goal up in a game where, like, Miami have the attacking talent that they do, and Messi and Suarez and Busquets on the field, like, it in my opinion, made it worse for Nashville because they were like, oh, we have the lead. Now we just need to sit on it for the entire game. And eventually, Miami ended up taking control and getting the ball in the back of the net a couple times, and it was hard for Nashville to kind of get themselves back going and start to create a lot of chances again, and it just didn't really happen for them. After, I think it went 1-1, and I think their biggest chance from there is like Schaffelberg ran into the box and didn't take a shot. He just dribbled into a group of players. And then from there, it was just all Miami, and they brought it home. So I thought Nashville made a good account of themselves. That's the saying. But just too much quality on the Miami side, and Nashville are kind of in this rut that we've been talking about for weeks now with the coaching, and the style of play is very stale. The players are very kind of average, and it's just kind of bad times in Nashville. And if they keep this up for much longer, they might not make the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, Nashville sits in, I think, 14th place in the East right now. That is, I don't know if I've ever seen them sit that low before. Certainly not for this long and at this point in the season. So to me, it's almost a question of what has led you to reach this point in time. And I think it just, in my opinion, comes down to the style of play, as well as what's actually going on building the roster. It doesn't feel like they have the players to execute Gary Smith's style of play. It doesn't feel like they are aligned in what the vision of the person signing players is and what the vision of the person coaching the players is. So, I mean, case in point today, Nashville, team seemingly known for selling all their international slots all the time, just purchased international slots today. Like, how did you get to that position?
And they've made multiple trades of international slots outside of their team this offseason. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the thinking is at the club, why they are so, it seems so against internationals. I'm sure that's something the fans are really frustrated with. And just overall, like, outside of, or off the pitch, I should say, they're having some issues as well, right? Like, weren't they the team that they were saying they were going to let Miami fans go into the supporter section? Haven't they been having parking issues? I think they've been having security issues as well.
They've been having parking issues forever.
Yeah, ever since they got the new stadium. But just like, I don't know, just things like that. It's like, what? I feel like it's not even just poor like operation or like decision making for soccer decisions. It feels like poor decision making all the way around at the moment at that club. So something they really got to fix.
Yeah, I honestly don't know if I can find a way to disagree with you there. It's just, it seems like I know you said it's the only thing they've got to fix, but this feels like one that you almost have to mash the reset button on, because it seems to me like your front office needs a reset, your coaching needs a reset, maybe even parts of your roster that are significant in nature are going to need overhauling as well to fit whatever sort of new style and new coaching vision comes in. I think it's going to get a little bit worse, but I would imagine, hopefully, that conversations are going on behind the scenes, trying to find ways to make it better. I don't think they've hit the bottom yet.
For sure, not for sure, but trending that way.
Yeah. As far as Miami goes, it's sitting top of the East, which is insane to me. I don't think either of us thought they would be at this point of the season and still be sitting at the top. Even missing Jordi Alba and Luis Suarez, Messi, a difference maker as most people probably pegged him to be in this league. You have Sergio Busquets still being a difference maker in this league, despite many people saying, "Oh, he's past it. He doesn't have the speed anymore." Like, still has that quality. Still putting in amazing shifts week over week. I mean, I can't find anything negative to say about them right now. Maybe they have this, like, I don't know. Maybe they have like some depth issues at center back.
Yeah, there's not much. There really isn't much. It's definitely on the defensive end if you've got anything. Suarez is playing, though. Suarez played this game. I know he's been injured in the past, so maybe that's what you're referencing. But it's just the worries, the injuries. Like, that's like literally the only thing. Like, I think Diego Gomez is out for a bit now. I think he's out for 6 weeks, it was announced, or rumored. But that's really it. Being able to manage the squad and manage the injuries that are going to come, and really just being ready for when the playoffs come around. I think that's all this team has to do, is just get to the playoffs, be as healthy as possible, and then try to go on your run there, because they've got talent everywhere. Even at the back, they've done a really good job of scouting. Aviles, I think he was really important in this game. He makes a huge tackle on Surridge when the game's 1-1, I think, and Surridge is about to tap the ball into an empty net, and he just gets a toe on it and kicks it off Surridge, and it goes out for a goal kick. And that's the type of plays that he's been producing for Miami all year. And, he's a young kid. Those have been the signings that they needed to make to support Messi and Suarez and yada, yada, yada. So you're right. It's hard to come up with too much negative to say about them, other than in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, they were a little immature, but that's it.
Yeah. And we do have a correspondence corner from Wyatt. You can find him on social media at Super Duper Wyatt. Gavin, do you want to read out correspondence corner while I briefly run off camera to adjust my Wi-Fi router, because it seems like that might be the issue.
Okay, yep. So Wyatt says, I'll read it slowly. No. With 14 days to figure out our issues and take a fight to Miami, Nashville still fell flat on their faces. Dang. Wyatt comes out saying hashtag Gary out is getting louder among fans, but I think we're seeing indications that this is more than a coaching issue. Most fans would rather NSC hit the reset button and start fresh instead of shooting for the stars and possibly making the playoffs. That's a bad place to be in. I'll just give my take on that. That's a bad place to be in, because Orlando's been in that place before, and when you would rather your team just reset, get rid of players, and not even try to make playoffs, instead of try to make the playoffs, that's not a fun feeling at all. So that's my take on what Wyatt had to say. Russell, are you back in commission? Oh, it may have gotten worse.
We're getting slow.
We're just going to take an intermission while Russell's internet fixes itself.
Mission.
Yeah, we can do that real quick. All right, is it working now? No, you are so laggy.
Hold on, let me try pausing this stream, Gavin, and we'll be back on the air in a hot second.